Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to the E-Tims podcast. My name is Desi and I am glad to say tonight I am joined by the man in the suburbs, our resident tactician, Hector Bandido. Good evening, Hector.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you for joining. And the man across the water at this point in time, before he jets off in some exotic business deal, Monty. We remember what the C stands for, don't we, everyone? Burns. Good evening, Monty.
Everyone's favourite cunt. There we go.
we transmorphed the word cunt for Bono, so everyone's favourite.
A total Bono. In fact, I actually should bring everyone up to speed. Just before we came on air, Hector, who's been living in the suburbs for so long now, has told us he's just found out this new comedy show called Curb Your Enthusiasm, which can also be Cunt Your Enthusiasm, let's be honest, given that show's language. So welcome to the modern world, Hector.
We just got internet here the other week, so over the moon.
Pigeon post next. Yes. So talking of cunts, I'd just like to say thank you to all of our listeners, all 4 of them, for the great response we had to the last podcast. It seemed to have kind of had quite a few funny bones for folks. So thanks very much for appreciating the cunt ratings that we gave various members of the Celtic hierarchy. James, I go to football with Hector. He did give me a special note on Saturday. He's still a bit worried about you. You still seem to be a wee bit too passive, a wee bit too nice at the moment. When will the real Hector come back to the podcast?
See, since I became a granddad, Desi, things have changed. Things have changed, right? Yeah. I'm just honestly a bit more easy about things now. I still have my moments, as you know.
But we're coming to some underlying reasons why Celtic are where they are, but that's clearly the reason why you are where you are. But at least Celtic are trying to bring you back to your normal.
Next time you see James, can you say to him, "Did I no suggest the cunts quiz? Is that in the box?"
Yeah, but I think he might have been expecting that you would have come back with, "No, guys, you are taking this too easy. Let's really go for them for the 20 out of 10 on the scale, not the 11 out of 10 we were settling for." Yeah, so I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for your lovely comments, for enjoying the podcast. Please leave comments whenever you can. We don't really, we're no interested in sponsorship or anything like that or ratings, but it's just really nice to hear that people are enjoying it and they get some feedback. So that would be appreciated. So I just wanted to give that shout out to James. So we are where we are, right? We're waiting on Ralph coming online. Hopefully he can join us in the next 10 minutes. If we're lucky, and that will give us a full quota tonight. But we are where we are. We were talking about agendas before this, right? So before Ralph comes on, Hector, let's just talk about the Kilmarnock game. Yes. It was, for me, possibly the strangest game experience I can remember having in a long, long time. We went from being okay to literally being invisible. Me and you in the stadium. It was a pure strange day, wasn't it?
It's, do you know, I would have to say that game's probably typifies a lot of this season. And what I mean by that is it's like one good stroke okay half of football, and then the other half it's like a Jack on Hyde Celtic we've seen so often this season. And it's been reinforced, I think, since we've come back, since the January winter break. First half, I thought at times and this is the thing, we're always saying about tempo, and I thought the first half we showed good tempo at times. The final ball wasn't there on occasion. Created some chances, and again, we should have been 2 or 3 nothing up at half time. And that's the thing, you get to half time, I don't know about you, but we're sitting here talking to the people around about you, and we need that second goal. That second goal, we could push on from that. And you just know the longer it goes without that second goal, there's a sucker punch coming. And it's not just like a last minute switch, it's coming. You can see it coming throughout the second half. And I think that's what you're kind of touching upon.
Yeah.
And the thing about it it's hard for us all to, you can see Roger struggling with it. We're all the same. although he's got less excuses than us because he's paid a fortune and he's a qualified coach. We're just daft amateurs who talk shite. But what's really frustrating is I felt even after, was it 50, 55 minutes, that we sort of brought the pressure on ourselves in the second half. There's a moment where we got the ball in our defence and it was down at the right back, right central defensive area with the keeper, with the corner flag. And we sort of tried to keep it there for the best part of 5 minutes. And all they did, it brought them up and they started pressing us. It seemed to give them some encouragement. And then we started panicking. And then lo and behold, the game seemed to turn in that. It just seemed to give them a bit of confidence. We went the opposite direction. We then looked lost. And I think what's frustrating for me, when you look at the people who are coaching the team, and I've done many podcasts before, and the bulk of my blame for this season goes with the board. But as a coach, watching Saturday thinking, Kilmarnock are doing a basic press. We brought them up and they're doing an absolute basic press. They were man for man pressing, as 10v10 out the pitch. It was like 3 or 4. We had spaces in the midfield for players to drop into and get the ball, and we never did it. Mm-hmm. And that was the bit that I was struggling with. And I'm thinking, Rodgers isn't stupid. He sees that. The coaching staff will see that. What is it they're saying or not saying? Are the players not able to take on board what they're asking? Because any team playing us knows up with Callum McGregor, you double team him. You put at least one on him. If you stop him, then Mattarelli, where's Mattarelli? He's been invisible since the link with Atletico Madrid. Yeah. And I think he's a big part of the problem. He's been brilliant up until the last few weeks. The third player in midfield's Kyogo right now, kind of almost a striker dropping. So he's not going to go there. So there's a void there. And I'm probably answering my own questions. We're just talking through it. A bit cathartic at times, that's right. But it's a basic press. It wasn't Atletico Madrid pressing us, right? It wasn't a good European. It was Kilmarnock. And part of it is that the players aren't either listening to orders or two, maybe even more simple than that. The players we've currently got playing in those positions in defence are our backup players. It's not a Carter Vickers and Alistair Johnson who are more adept at doing that. It's players who aren't at the same level. So where I'm coming from, Desi, there's probably a number of things we're all scratching our heads at, trying to work out how it can go from being decent to okay to being shite to turn their switch. And I think that's the frustrating thing for all of us just now.
Yeah, exactly. And again, because we went from being confused regards the transfer window and then activity recruitment-wise, but that seems to now be being mirrored on the pitch. Like, again, we finished that first half, and I know we only scored the first goal, but I turned round for James, stands on one side, and a young Finn, that's our side, and I said, that wasn't bad. I mean, it was actually decent enough. We didn't get the second goal, but we were in there half. There was lots of attempts of players trying to play like balls through the channels, and Maeda cutting inside, or somebody a Taylor trying to cut inside. No, we were trying to break the lines, so to speak, and we were in there half, and then we had half time. And I've asked this before in our WhatsApp. I have no idea, Monty, what Brendan Rodgers is saying at half time, but I don't know what's going on, because we came out the second half. And within 10 minutes, as you alluded to, Hector, 55 minutes, it was as if a bomb went off within everyone's heads, and every one of the players just went into themselves. Not one of them came out with pass marks in that second half. Everybody seemed terrified. Everybody just seemed to regress back to being 4 out of 10 players. Nobody wanted. At one point, Callum McGregor booted the ball out the park for the halfway at the centre line, because we did 5 minutes of that panic down in our own corners. Not way, even he was feeling the pressure, and it was just inconceivable was the word I used on our WhatsApp, Monty. And I think you were watching it too from afar, but it was just I just don't understand how that game could have happened like that. Have you any thoughts, Monty?
I think, Desi, this hasn't happened overnight. We are fucking pish and have been for weeks, arguably months. The highlights of the season, ironically, have come in the big games. We've had maybe, I can think of 3, maybe 4 really good domestic dominant performances, like hammering the sheep. I think there was a couple of 3-0, 4-0. But outside of that, we've been fucking rotten. And there's a pattern in this. There's Rodgers coming back. There's the natural emotional crash of winning a treble and then Postecoglou leaving. And there's a new guy coming in with new ideas. And Brenton said he didn't want to change too much. Why would you? You just want a treble. But the coaching changes, the manager's input into your day-to-day changes, and they all moped about like fucking Waynes for a while at the start of the season. Didn't know whether people were going to stay. Then we give people 4 or 5 year contracts. So Rodgers convinced them, you're the nucleus of my new team. And by the way, I'm going to get you 4 or 5 really good guys at your level. And then they didn't turn up. So we did all right. And I'm kind of rewinding the season here, a bit cathartic, a bit like Hector. Then we push ahead by 8 points. And there's a fucking real red flag warning there in my head, because it happened around the same time as the AGM. And it happened around the same time as Rodgers was interviewed. And he let his guard down. He let a wee bit of arrogance out of him, which I'd never heard him do before. For as long as I've been here, Rangers have always been coming. Then we had that fucking daft idiot Nicholson at the AGM going, aye, penalty Rangers, and everyone laughs and guffaws. Hubris kind of entered the building around the same time as they changed manager. Now, in between that and the transfer window, supposedly, Rodgers told 14 members of a 32-member squad that they were free to find new clubs, that they weren't going to be part of his future plans. And he did it in his own, supposedly in his own professional and polite and he's everybody's buddy type way. That was around the time we got beat back-to-back, 2 games. Then the next transfer window lands, and all the things that he promised the nucleus didn't turn up again. We got 2 reasonable players, but that's about it. And
questionable, I would say.
Questionable. And we'd already pissed the lead away, and he didn't get back. So the performances on the pitch mirror a lack of ambition or a lack of coherence off it, Desi. And actually, I hate to say it, I actually didn't watch the game at the weekend, and I'm fucking delighted I didn't. I think I'd have been even more annoyed. But I knew at 1-0, and I was talking to my younger brother earlier. He sees the same thing. He says he left about 10 minutes to go. He was watching. He said, fuck, this is boring. And he knew that he was going to get a text message from one of his mates going, fuck, this is shit again. And sure enough, set your clock back 1 each. So performances on the pitch, I think, mirror an incoherence of it, Desi. I know we're going to talk about the business side of it and all that, which is part of the incoherence. But I'm fucking puzzled as to how a really, really good manager has fallen from grace so rapidly in terms of just basics and how to send a team out and how to counteract, as Hector pointed out, the basics of a very simple, unsophisticated press from Kilmarnock, and go back to Aberdeen and go back. You can fucking replay this a ton of times. What's McInnes took office now this season? 4 points and knocked us out of a cup.
Yep.
Derek fucking McInnes. Not good, Desi. Not good. Sorry, I'm in rant mode, but I'll flick on to something.
No, you can. Well, again, because and people may be surprised that the actual agenda headline I had for tonight was positivity CSC. But I am glad to say at this very point, I'm glad to just hit a slight pause. I'm glad to say we have just been joined by Neil Warnock, apparently from his car. Good evening, Neil. How are you doing up in Aberdeen there?
I think that might be a case of mistaken identity.
Well, I'm sure you're a dead ringer. Hector, would you agree? There was a touch of the Neil Warnocks there.
I think he looks at Neil Warnock's granny.
Although I have heard that Neil Warnock has a fully functioning back. How are you getting on, Ralph? You've been on well.
I'm all right. How are you guys?
I think you've been carrying Celtic, judging by the state of your back. So, Ralph, we're just discussing Kilmarnock. We're waiting on you coming on before we go into various other aspects, but we're just discussing the Kilmarnock game, and I was saying I think it's one of the strangest games I've ever experienced, because it's not as if we started off bad and went and then lost. We started bad and never get any better. We were doing all right, and then we disappeared, like totally to a man disappeared. And as Hector said, it wasn't as if they got a lucky break. The goal was coming for about 35, 40 minutes. And then Monty says he knew it was coming. No, that way. So if everybody in the crowd has that feeling, that must get to the players somehow, Ralph. And Monty also alluded to the rumour that was going around regards Brendan and telling so many players that they were unwanted in his future plans.
He does seem to blame the players a lot, doesn't he?
At the
I've
moment.
always felt that you should look in the mirror when you start to look for a solution to a problem. Look in the mirror first of all, and he's not doing that. And now you have a situation, I think, where the players are afraid to do anything wrong, whether that be they're afraid of getting flack from the manager, afraid of getting flack from the crowd. There's a huge swathe of insecurity running through the whole club. People are afraid to take chances, whereas you go back a couple of years and they were encouraged to take chances, whether it worked or not. Now it's like we're just waiting for something to go wrong every week.
Yeah, but as a still Hector, it's strange also the fact that we went, was it 8 games unbeaten and 1 draw? So it's not as if they've been, it's not as if, I know we've not been playing well, but they're still getting the wins, and you think they would still think we're about to turn this corner, and I think we're all still hoping we're going to turn this corner. But
there's a number of factors at play, and this is where I think it's quite complicated. See, it was just one thing we go, right, that's the issue at play here. But even before us kicking things about, we've already touched upon 2 or 3 things. Other things on Ralph's point there is, but my opinion, we've significantly regressed in the pitch. Right? That treble team's gone. That treble team has been totally dismantled. 2 of them left last January who have not been replaced. Giakoumakis, Juranovic, Johnson decent. Jovanovic is really good. Giakoumakis hasn't been replaced. And then the summer, you had Starfelt, you had Moy and Jota. They've not been replaced. Then you've had, talk about risk. Who's the riskiest player that we've got? The team's Hatai. Hatai's been out injured virtually all season. So we can't reference now the team of last season. That team's no been here. That's gone. We're lucky if there's about 4 players or 5 players here. And that, I think, this is when I'm getting to my point. There's been a lot of anger for Celtic supporters going way back to the end of August when the transfer window closed. A lot of it. And Desi, you know, we're fortunate enough that we go all the time. And it's been simmering and simmering and simmering there. And the fact that we opened up a wee bit of league and Beale kind of had an implosion at Ibrox helped us a bit. We kept grinding out results. But when the band the Green Brigade, that seemed to ignite things more with the fans. And now the talk of the steam has been for quite some time that January would come round and all that money we had, we'll get the players we need in January. We'll get 2, maybe 3 a push first team players in. Maybe we'll buy 1 and 2 loans that'll be really, really good. And that didn't happen. And now the clubs, what are they, 10 days, 2 weeks late and sharing their interim figures. Latest have been in something like 50. Hold on, the latest have been in something like 15 years. And this is the crux, because they're scared to announce. Think about this. The people running our club are petrified to announce that we're going to be sitting with close to £100 million cash in the bank because they're going to get slaughtered by the fan base. Yep. We've had this combination of fucking simmering anger, and the fans are apoplectic with rage right now. At the board, we go to the games, Desi, the board are getting it in the face and have been for months now. And I think there's this whole combination of events, and Ralph touched upon it, or I think it was you, the players look scared on the pitch, and you can feel it. And I think it's all interrelated.
That's the incoherence that I'm talking about, Hector. This time last season, no one gave a fuck about the company bank balance, even though it was really healthy. No one gave a fucking toss about the Green Brigade's antics. And the only thing that really annoyed people was Lowell having returned, just because he should never have. We had the closest, certainly in the last, I would argue since O'Neill's season, we had the closest thing to coherence throughout the entire club. Football was good to watch, supporters fully on board, felt like a connection with the club again. The manager, the board were out of sight, doing a particularly good job in running a PLC. It was the way it should be. It felt like the football club, the football operation was centre and everyone was happy with it. But they fucked that, and they fucked that in a space of 6 or 7 months. It's incredible. Now, it's not a scenario of their creation. Postecoglou chose to leave. There's no guarantee that we'd be significantly dominant and enjoying our football had he stayed. It's just life. He moves on. But the manner in which they've done it, and when I ran the chronology, I actually forgot about them banning the Green Brigade. That fear factor comes from incoherence and not knowing what the fuck are we about. And the problem is, we're, the old analogy of half pregnant. We're a phenomenally well-run business that looks like it's fucked up its core product, which is football on a pitch. Yet it won't suffer. It's going to perform every bit as brilliantly, if not even better. It's the most fucking puzzling thing in all my days of supporting Celtic all my life. I've never felt, even when it was fucked with the Kelly and Whites, I've never felt this disenfranchised. I really don't. And the root and branch clear out that I think, we'll talk about this, I know, but the root and branch clear out that needs to happen is the one root and branch clear out that fucking won't happen. The board will stay in place because the board, from an operating of a PLC point of view, are doing exactly what you'd want them to do. And we'll touch upon numbers and we'll touch upon other fucking things and I've gone down the rabbit hole on. But we're just back to front at the minute. We're arseways. The PLC should exist to serve the football operation. At the minute, it's the other way about. The football operation exists to serve the PLC. And that's what's fundamentally wrong.
Yeah. Ralph, I'll go on to something else in a second. But speaking of good news, we're just talking about things back to front and various things. Celtic have released a world-class video tonight to highlight the fact that work on Barrowfield has now begun. I know it's close to Hector's heart. It mentions state-of-the-art, world-class, up there with the world's best. So they're trying their best. A full 5-minute video, if you haven't seen it, folks, it's available with Jeremy Culloch's lovely dulcet tones telling you how good it is. An interview with Chris McCart. But again, they're obviously trying to get some good PR out there. Ralph?
Oh, well, we can all relax, eh? We don't even need to do a podcast now. Everything's going to be fine in about 10 years when all these kids come through. And
explains 100 million, Ralph. Explains 100 million, just like that.
Yeah, Monty's absolutely right. The only aspect of the club that's doing what it's supposed to be doing is support. And we hate that. As a support, we can't handle that. But nobody in their world will criticise them. They're doing what they're paid to do. Whereas the rest of us seem to be sitting around on the field and in the management and in the training. It's like somebody's waiting for something to happen. Like the transfer window, we were waiting for a few players to come in and kickstart it to lift the mood, and it didn't happen. We're waiting on the pitch for somebody to grab the game by the scruff of the neck like the Roy Aitkins and Scott Browns used to do, and it's not happening. We're waiting for Furuhashi to rediscover his form. It's not happening. The only player that can hold his head up high recently is Joe Hart, which is surprising given the amount of criticism he got up until now. He's probably maybe trying to lead by example. If he could just be a bit more vocal and kick some arses around him, we might see something. But there is that kind of reactive thing instead of a proactive thing. And then when nothing happens, we're afraid of something bad happening. And it's shown towards the end of the games when we used to score, the other teams are pulling us back. We seem to have made a complete arse of it.
Yeah. Okay, Hector, I'm going to read something to you here, right? You're a resident tactician, right? You listening?
No.
Right, so that's a wee paragraph. Bear with me, a wee paragraph. The night after the game, the manager sat with the club's bosses and explained to them where the problems currently lie. The manager's analysis was that the players don't dare to take any risks. They only go for the safe option, preferring to pass the ball backwards or sideways rather than boldly forward. That means there are no moments of surprise for the opponent and no 1-versus-1 situations for the forward players that the forward players need. And as a result, the strength of the main striker cannot be put to use, which has led to only one shot on target in the last 2 games against opposition. That is Thomas Tuchel getting the sack from Bayern Munich today. That was the report on how he responded to how poor they're performing. Could you substitute Brendan Rodgers for Thomas Tuchel in there? I'm not saying sack him, I'm just saying that analysis seems to be the exact same thing that's happening with our players.
But Thomas Tuchel's thing is, we mentioned one of the biggest the most annoying thing for those of us who are Celtic supporters is the lack of investment in the first team. Thomas Tuchel signed Harry Kane for £100 million last summer, and others. So he has been backed. So he's got no excuses. He's got some of the best wingers and direct players in the world. I think it just goes back to, honestly, and it's not even asking for the world. We could all see even Angie's team last season. We're all thinking ahead to this year. You probably covered it in my podcast. Would we need strengthened? For me, consistently, a left back and a centre back. I wanted a left back, the equivalent of Johnston's physicality, and a left centre back as good as Carter Vickers. We go back to the August window, didn't happen for a left back. The January window, we're all convinced a left back. And here's why it's vital. The goal at the weekend we lost in 90th minute came from what position? A shite left back who fannied about rather than just competing for the ball. Away to Aberdeen, they won each game. Aberdeen's goal in the break came from, guess who lost the ball? Just gave it away carelessly. It's our backup left. And people have really got to just focus on the details sometimes, right? And why? Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point in ever improving then? Just stay as you are forever. You've always got to look to improve, and having a decent left back in makes a difference. It's probably given us 4 points. It's 3 points. It's wee things, but it's important wee things that matter. And that's what frustrates the life out of me, having all that money in the bank and we sit doing fuck all.
I would argue the goal, blaming Bernabeu for the goal. I'm no excusing Bernabeu because I saw one of the worst things I've saw in a long, long time. He was on the pitch for 2 minutes on Saturday, right in front of me where I sat in the prawn cocktail stand, and there was a big space. What's his name? Armstrong, the Kelly winger. I think he covered the ball in space and had plenty of space to run or whatever. Whatever happened, and Rodgers had to tell Bernabeu where he was meant to stand on the pitch. Right? No, as I say, but I'm not excusing him for the goal. But the whole point about the goal is Celtic ever get a chance to clear it centrally. They don't clear it. Then it comes back outside to the right. Anthony Ralston doesn't go to the guy. He stands off the guy. So you'll get your centre pair fail to clear the ball. You'll get your right back doesn't stop the cross coming in. Then you've got your miniature left back backup who's just not got a chance.
He's going to compete.
So it's totally the 4 across the back.
But he fell over trying to buy a free kick rather.
But again, that was also started with Scales trying to bring the ball forward and literally stumbling like Bambi on ice.
But as a defender, your number one job, right?
Yeah,
when you're defending, you've got to. I'm sorry, you don't fall down with a guy. Was it 8 meters or 6 meters for goal? You've got to compete, right? And the fact he didn't, he did the opposite. He tried to hide and buy a foul. It's
but I would say I'm not defending him here to defend the defender. What I'm saying is he's not a left back. He's not a left back.
Well, I'm not a left back.
And no one of the worst things is he's probably the best out of the 4 that ended up finishing that game at bringing the ball forward. At one point, he nutmegged the guy on Saturday, and it was beautiful to watch. But he's never a left back.
You seems a bit like Bolly.
Bernard Bombscare, we were calling him on Saturday.
He's an Argentina version of him. He's fucking rubbish. Right? And we tried to offload him. Monty's point about he was one of the players we wanted to offload. Of course, it was empty. Even Ange gave up the ghost with him. You know, fucking Ange was it under him? Was it £3.5 million? Our scouting department. Ange gave up the ghost with him. He was persona non grata, and he was getting moved out. We didn't get a left back in, so he's there. And it's like, fuck me. And that's the consequences of not investing in the first team.
Monty, I'm coming to you. I just want to read you something from Greg Taylor, right? And this is, we're moving post game, right? So we've analysed the game. But after the game, the talk of the steamy was the closed dressing room, everybody getting a word, right? Everybody, let's have a reality check here and everybody airing their grievances, etc. So Greg Taylor said, Monty, we want to hit the levels we know we can hit, but we've all talked about that. We're a team, so it was the coaches, managers and all the players. This is the after game chat. We are all united as one, as we all want to put on a better showing for the fans. We have to have perspective. It's only February at the moment, so there's a long way to go, but we need to find a level of performance. you think they can find it, Monty?
No.
I don't think they know where to look for it.
No, they can't. This isn't some sort of fucking engine you can turn on and off with desire. The feelings that you guys get to watch every week, and I get to watch from a distance when I fucking torture myself to go and sit in front of it for the last month. Those feelings aren't feelings of desire that automatically you get a kick up the arse and it all clicks. There are players unwilling or unable to do what's being asked of them. And I go back again to that timeline, and early in the season, Roger's saying, and McGregor coming out and saying it felt a little bit like information overload, so we stripped it back to basics.
Yep.
How the fuck can that be? You're playing a similar style of football. You're a professional footballer. You've just dominated for 2 years. What the fuck do you mean you don't know when you're meant to move into a space? Unless, and I know we have different opinions as to which tier Rogers fits into, and I know that Ralph's view is that he fucking creates tiers for many.
Oh, very good. Come on, everybody. Come on, that was good.
Try the face.
Yeah, well done. You've been working on that all week. Tip your wages.
But I genuinely believe it. Tier 1, top level coach. Tier 2 / project players, and that's the inherent problem. Now, O'Reilly, McGregor, yeah, maybe Bernardo, but he's still very young. Carter Vickers, Hattari, who we've missed all year. Kyogo, yeah, borderline. We have a nucleus of 5 or 6. It goes back to my earlier point. You boys are my nucleus. I'm going to get you 5 of the same level over the next 12 months. We're going to be fucking brilliant. And then nobody turns up. So to Hector's point, the consequence of not investing in a better quality of player is now being borne out. And whichever one of you guys who have the shared Twitter coined that fucking Lawl's cap.
Well, paradox, that was me.
Fucking glorious. Got a few people mention it to me then. I
had to Google paradox to understand what it meant. So well done.
You didn't need to Google Lawwell, you just looked at that, your screensaver on your phone.
Yeah. One of the fucking Heaney clan in Glasgow sent it to me going, are you being controversial? And I liked it that much, I claimed it.
You're welcome. It's a team effort. Unlike Celtic, it's a team effort.
But it's 100% bang on the money. And it's our fundamental, it's this incoherence again. And I'm just beyond fucking puzzled at this stage. I don't even know.
Yes. And just to confirm to anyone that's listening who's not aware, I coined the Lawwell paradox as when you save money in case you don't qualify for the Champions League, then you don't qualify for the Champions League because you store money. When you store money, because you store money. And it seemed to resonate with a lot of people. Although some people did come back and go, why are you blaming Lawwell? No, actually realising he was the guy that came out and said, we only qualify once every two attempts. Right, Ralph, I'm sticking to what Taylor said after the game here, because I think this is interesting. I wouldn't say it's because of the anxiety from the stands. I think players should be able to deal with that. And again, remember, Taylor was always quoted as being one of the leaders by Ange in the dressing room. Apparently he's a big personality in the dressing room with Joe Hart and Callum McGregor. But Ralph Denny says, it's everyone as a collective having to understand that this club demands success and it demands a way of playing. So I really thought that was interesting, the fact it's everyone as a collective. Am I reading too much into that, Ralph, or is he telling the manager to basically stop fucking about and let's just go and attack teams?
It could partly be that, but I'm more concerned that after the game, they're all sitting miserable and complaining, and the atmosphere is obviously going to be down because of the results, but there's no need to continue that negativity. You need to draw a line under it, and you need to then start accentuating the positives within the team, and then bringing that into work on a Monday morning when you're working towards the next game. Because if you leave it on a negative, they're going to come in on a negative, and it takes a long time to get out of that. Again, it comes back to that kind of thought that if you think you're going to play badly, if you think you're going to play well, you'll be right on both counts. It's the whole mood, the whole atmosphere must be dreadful in there.
See,
They should be enjoying themselves. Ange used to say, didn't he? And other managers have said, they're at Celtic. They know what being at Celtic's about. That's from day one when they sign. They shouldn't need to be reminded. of where they play. They shouldn't need to be reminded that they need to win every game. That's the environment they chose to enter. Why do they need to be reminded that's what it is?
Here's the thing, Ralph. For most of them, this is the first time they've faced adversity at Celtic. If you think about that, other than McGregor, Ralston, maybe, Jamesy Forrest, he's not playing. If you look at that squad and how that squad's been put together for the last 3 to 4 years, for most of them, this is the first time they've faced adversity at Celtic. You've just sparked that in my head. They haven't had their back to the wall. They haven't had a dysfunctional team environment. They haven't had a dressing room where loads of people have been told they can leave. They're all buddies. Even the Japanese contingent has been effectively dismantled now. There's 3 guys who are on 4-year contracts. One of them will probably be sold in the summer, if not 2. You're in that world of change, and change is fucking ugly and difficult. But I think also, Ralph, you hit the nail on the head. The environment, I wouldn't say it's toxic in a negative way. It's just toxic in a very uncertain and dysfunctional way. If, from the outside looking in. And that in itself creates the fear on the pitch, of the fear of making a mistake, and all of those other variables that we've touched upon.
Guys, can I put Desi? Can I just put something to use 3, right?
Sure.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was something came to mind, and I've just googled it in the background, and it's probably good timing of this, right? So I'm going to read you out a wee comment here, right? And you've got to tell me who said this. In terms of investment, our policy, our commitment is that every penny that comes into the club being Celtic, will be reinvested. It will go back into the club. I do not think we can be clearer than that. There's no pile of cash sitting there that we could look at, watch, feel, and touch. It doesn't exist. It is fantasy. Who said that?
I've got a feeling I might know. I'll let Ralph go first.
It was Lowell. He was getting criticised for hoarding money a few years back, didn't he?
Yeah, so
And he came out.
well done. So this is from 2014. After Celtic had crashed out the Champions League qualifiers to Maribor, and it was put to Lowell. At the time, he did an interview with one of his lapdogs in the Daily Mail, but to be fair, the questions were quite good, right? And it was round about the club having a lack of ambition, putting profits before players, yada, yada. So almost 10 years ago, 9.5 years ago, Peter Lowell, there's no pile of cash sitting there. It's a fantasy. Every penny brought into the club is reinvested. So, where's the truth? Is he telling lies?
Can I come in on that, Hector?
We're consistent, at least on you go, Monty.
We're consistent. There's 2 pieces here that I genuinely believe are the explainers as to why. That notion of the football club existing to serve the PLC and the PLC performing at such an optimum level, it's performing at an optimum level inside a business model. The business model ironically relates to the Lowell paradox. We don't plan to have Champions League football. We do plan to have a shot at Champions League football. And if we don't, we have a very successful business model that says if we don't make the Champions League, we're not fucked. We can sell a major asset. We've secured all those major assets now for the next 4 to 5 years if we need to. And if we've got enough cash in the bank, then we don't need to. But if we miss the Champions League 2 or 3 years in a row, then we've got a problem. So explainer number 1 is the business model itself and the board's adherence to the business model. But explainer number 2, I think, is the more relevant and more pertinent for us as supporters. In the same way we talk about managers having different tiers and different levels, it's my fundamental belief that Peter Lowell not only won a watch, but won a heated driveway and everything that went with it, along with all the bonuses. When he got promoted from being the club accountant to the chief financial officer to the CEO, his level of ability will never be beyond parochial in that regard. He is not the type of guy to take a risk on a 1 billion corporation. He's not, what do you call the guy from the post office, big Celtic fan? Adam Crozier?
Crozier. Yep.
Crozier was in line for that fucking job, wasn't he? Remember, Crozier was meant to get it, and then Law got the job. Now, if you're Desmond, you want the conservative guy, but you love the idea of the really ballsy guy. We've never had a really top-tier CEO. We've had a really top-tier board. Now, I hate the fuckers. John Reid, fucking Quinn, bankers and politicians and Tories. I despise what they stand for, but I'm sure they're wonderful men in their own right, and women, but they're fucking the antithesis of us as a support. So, rounding it out, 2 things. The business model is an explainer as to why we behave the way we do, but the other thing is these guys are operating at their ceiling, and if we really ever do want to go to the next level, you've got to clear them all out. They've all got to fucking go, and you got to replace them with people of ambition. And to someone's point earlier on, before maybe we started it, a different age profile. Sharon Brown's the only one in there in her 50s, I think, at 55 years of age. The rest of them are all fucking late 60s, early 70s. We need it cleared out, guys. That until we do that, he's right. There is no pile of cash sitting dwindling. But what there are is corporate reserves for a worst case scenario. That's a completely different thing. And they'll spin the fuck out of that, hence Barrowfield. Will you see what else we come up with next? And my last ranting point, the head of a football academy, whose job it is to develop footballers, reporting to the fucking commercial director.
But it's internet. It's the soccer academy. It's not the football academy. The soccer academy is the commercial summer camps. That sort of academy. So they had to come out and clarify what that was. It's not Chris McCart's head of academy. So he was on the night talking about Barrowfield, etc., the development of Barrowfield. But the actual head of soccer academy is a guy who goes around North America setting up your Florida summer schools and stuff. It's somebody to take care of that, and you're doing the Glasgow Green with Simon Donnelly, those sort of things. So that's
would you have an accountant / salesperson, or would you prefer a football guy who can spot a 12-year-old kid with ultimate talent?
Yeah, but again, don't confuse. That's not a scouting thing. It's a commercial thing. Like, is this a summer school thing? It's like that. It's not a talent thing. It's basically getting all the kids during the summer and letting them run around a field for a while and then getting a picture with some Celtic person that turns up. But getting over a wee tangent there, but I just made a note of the words next level. I mean, like, Rangers have been in 2 European finals since they came back. Meaning we can't even like have a positive campaign like on a consistent level. We maybe have a couple of good showings. It's just unbelievable that you've got to go back to say Gordon Stratton's day to hope for an actual good run, and we've no any consistency over periods of years, let alone 1 or 2 years. It's terrible. But
Lenny.
But again, like over a couple of years, yeah. And again, what happened to your rumour? What happened to your confirmation of Lenny getting the Ireland job?
I said he was in the running. That's all.
I don't know. I'm sure.
He can't run, can he? That's why he never got it.
I'm sure we'll have to check that.
Have they given it to anybody? I haven't.
Apparently, he was told it's certainly not him. I don't know. Who was it? Chris Coleman? That would make you laugh when you get that news.
Yeah. And Tuchel's number 2, by the way.
Exactly. Right. So Dermot might turn around and bring some money, but I want to stay positive, right? We're going to try and stay.
Positive.
Stay positive.
I was going to say, Ralph noted there. You've got to try and end in a positive, etc. So again, there's nothing. We don't know, right? We don't know what's going on. So there's no any point in trying to keep going on about this and that. I think our wee collective of 4 people is a good example of the kind of Celtic fan base at the moment, and maybe even the Celtic player. Like, I've watched Monty over the last couple of weeks suddenly start to move towards the questioning Brendan's execution, let's say. No his talent, but this is execution and how he's using the players available to him. Hector actually purposely turned around and says, I'm drawing a line in the sand with negativity. I'm going to try and be a bit positive and back the team. And then we had the Kilmarnock game, which really kind of tests anyone's positivity. Ralph, again, is the same. You were quite positive, Ralph, of where this could go. And gradually you've started to come back towards what I would call my place in the team, whereby I'm the natural pessimist. So let's put that aside, and let's see if between us we could maybe come up with a few solutions to what we see as problems, right? So I've just made a few notes. I'll start with you, Hector, right? I've just written down here, and if you come up with any of this, voice them. Hector, a problem is there seems to be no clear game plan, yet Brendan tells us nothing has changed from the Ange plan. What's the solution, Hector? Does somebody brave need to sit down with Brendan and say, Brendan, this isn't working, mate. We need to do something.
Well, I can answer that, right? So we have changed, right? We've gone with two up front. That's something we've not started with two up front. That's been something that on occasion chased a game. We've maybe brought another striker the last 15, 20 minutes. Kyogo and O for a wee bit at times, and Kyogo and Giacomakis one or two occasions. But he has gone 4-4-2 with Kyogo playing off the big fella up front. So he has changed it. So there's no disputing that from me. And even in Saturday's game, when it was 4-4-2 and we lost the midfield the second half, he then went to a 4-3-3 to put somebody back into midfield. So there has been changes there. I can see it myself. I just think the issue is we're just too slow in moving the ball forward through the middle. And it's this pass with two centre backs. And I'm not sure whether it's lack of players' movement in front of them. But in fact, that is the problem. And we also have wingers who Palmer, right? He took him off half time on Saturday. For me and probably everybody else in the stadium, that was probably the right move. Palmer
definitely. I thought you were going to say the first. I thought you were going to say the first 5 minutes, to be honest.
So what I'm trying to build a case here, Des, is your questions just to demonstrate some facts that there is changes being made to people who aren't performing. He came off, rightly so. But I think for me, it's about the centre halves moving the ball quicker, but it needs options in front of them. And that's his job. If that's not happening, I mean, that's the crux of it for me. That's the crux. That's what has to change. Right,
exactly. So, like Monty, I've got here, the problem is we are far too passive. And a couple of that with what Hector was saying there, the problem is we can't bring the ball or play out from the back. So one of the solutions I had, tying in with what Hector says, bring everyone 20 yards back towards the keeper, i.e. the wingers need to come back and give the full-backs an option. Because you watched Anthony Ralston there, they having to take 3 steps in to put it back to Joe Hart, rather than, say, play it down the line. We don't form triangles for some reason anymore. We used to have that nice wee give and go triangle with someone else giving an option. And now, again, Monty, why don't we just punt it now and again to Ida or Matt O'Reilly, somebody with a bit of height? Do we need some variation, or do we just keep trying until we get it right?
I think the speed of execution is what both Rodgers has said and the players have said. And you've seen that. Remember the St. Johnson, the dire draw months ago? And someone put up that little, and it's done the rounds now for a few games, that little clip of like 1994 soccer game, the two guys kicking off.
The Simpsons.
Yeah, if we speed things up, we tend to be good. You look at the goals we scored against Lazio and Atletico, and it's speed of execution and players' awareness and where they are, and almost anticipation, where we slow it down and make it so easy to play against. So does changing it create further confusion, Desi? It probably does, especially if the team's lacking confidence. You know, Anne's comment, you don't go into McDonald's just because you're hungry and if you're a vegetarian. But you'd stick with it if, from the outside looking in, if it looked just a little bit off, you're thinking just stick with it.
Surely you could just buy a large portion of fries just to get you over. Just to get you through lunchtime. That's what the scenario we're looking at here. We're starving and we need something, Monty.
But maybe the oil that the fries are cooked in isn't exactly what you're looking for either. I just think we're just fucking lost, Desi. And I know Hector said we're far from giving up the ghost. There's 36 points to play for. But would you back us to go on a 10-game winning run? Would you?
So can I just come in that one, right? And this is why I'm no giving up the ghost. One, because only 2 points in it. But the other part is, I don't know who was it mentioned earlier on, our best performances this season have been against the Zombies home and away. But then let's think back, both games, the one at Ibrox, all of us, I think, thought we were going to lose. Bear in mind the team, probably by a couple of goals. I thought most Celtic fans did. And we're in a convincing 1-0 winner, one going on 2 or 3-0. Then the game at Celtic Park just after Christmas, remember, on the back of a couple of bad results. Again, a lot of Celtic fans had written us off. And I thought the second half, one of those rare second half, really good performances. They get a last few minutes after the late goal, but we dominated that game. And then the Champions League games, we get one doing. But I thought 3 games at home and the 2 away games up until the red cards, I thought we put on a level of performance. So what I'm trying to get is it because we get more space? So if we play the Zombies in 2 games, is it because they're not doing a low block that we struggle with? Is it they're going to have a go at us, which suits us? Is that really, that's kind of where I'm coming from. We play them, and might be the games that suits us because we're getting more space. Where we struggle is the low block. The other thing is with them, they're not a great team, but they're winning. But they've got European games to come. And there's that thing, are they going to go on a 10, 11, 12 game run to the end of the season with pressure building? So it might be, Desi, I put a tweet a couple of weeks ago, whoever's the least shite, I think, will win the league this season. And I stand by that comment. I totally stand by that. I think we'll drop more points, and I can see them drop more points. It's just who's the least shite will stumble over the line.
But you know they're going to get the penalties when they need them.
Yeah. So, Ralph, we'll come to you regards strength, right? We're really short on quality with Carter Vickers, AJ, and Hatate absent. What's the solution? Do we just patch them up and throw them out there as quickly as possible, or do we actually try and make do with what we've got?
The problem is that from management level, we seem to be uncertain now about how to deal with games and chopping and changing formations. When you've been used to playing from virtually youth all the way up to senior, the teams played the same way under Ange. They even did under Dialer. They have done for years now. We started with 2 midfielders against Kilmarnock. You could see what the problem was going to be immediately. And they're not 2 ball-winning midfielders either. So immediately, it's down to the defenders. There's no cover for them. It was an accident waiting to happen. The problem we have is that manager doesn't seem to know how to get the best out of the players. So he's chopping and changing formations. Instead of saying, right, we're getting back to what the players obviously enjoyed playing away under Ange. And now they're coming. If somebody at your work changes the way things are done and you're not happy with it, you're not going to perform to the best of your ability. And to be honest, if it was me that was on the board, or it was me that was in control of that, I'd be sitting Brendan down and asking him if he really thinks that football management is a career for him, because he's making a complete balls up of it. Those players there are still far and above anything else in Scotland. There isn't a player in that squad that couldn't be a first-team regular by anybody else. And
Anthony Ralston, Bernabe, Stephen Welsh, are you serious?
If you get a game in the SPL, surely, Hector.
Kilmarnock or Aberdeen, Hector.
Yeah, but this is the whole thing, isn't it, Monty? The whole thing is.
And if you're clear enough to a player what you want them to do, I've had kids playing when I used to get involved in kids football. They couldn't play football. But even a big lumpy guy, you would just tell him to boot the ball as far away as he could. You would get him to take throw-ins and aim at the goalkeeper's face in the other team.
Is it to get Stephen Welsh?
I'll tell you what,
boot the ball
you would get more out of them than what you're getting out of them now, because the uncertainty is going to be very, very difficult to take out. It's not so much that they're only 2 points ahead of us; it's a 10-point swing over the last few weeks. And I cannot see where an improvement is going to come from if we keep doing what is it, a definition of insanity? Just keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. It's not going to happen.
So what's the change then? No,
go back. Go back to taking chance. Go back to the high press. You know, we used to hunt in packs as a forward line. If one of their players get the ball, there'd be 3 or 4 around them. We're not doing that anymore. One of the first things Brendan stopped doing was the substitutions on 60 minutes when players were tired. Because we knew there'd be a fresh guy coming on and he'd be doing exactly the same as the guy that replaced him, even if he wasn't as good at it. We'd be doing exactly the same thing. There's no fear in playing Celtic anymore. No fear from anyone, and I really don't feel confident enough that we're going to go and do the business against them, because they've now got momentum with them. They actually believe they can do it.
It's lack of quality. You've not got Rio Hatate, who was the risk taker in that midfield. You've not got Jota, who would drive at a defender and hit the byline. They don't have the same quality, and you can see it every week.
But we're not telling them to do that. Is Brendan accepting and telling the players, you're not as good as him,
we don't know.
Right.
Well, we don't know.
No, we don't know. But I'm asking the question. Aye. Is that the reason we're not driving at him? Because the manager doesn't... he's kind of accepted that he's not got the players that he wanted, the 4 or 5 first-team ready players. Now, that gets across to those players. So even subconsciously, they might feel that he hasn't got the faith in them to do what the team was doing last season.
Right,
it's maybe just as simple as that.
Okay,
but you have to put faith. His job is to give players that confidence.
Yeah, right. If I can just throw a reality check for a second. This was Kilmarnock at home. Kilmarnock fucks it at home. This was the rugby part on a fucking wet Sunday. This was Kilmarnock at home. Right, but touching what you said there, Ralph, this is Greg Taylor, who also said it can be difficult when you're up against a low block and you're tiring a team out. But when there's a team that has played against you man for an hour or 65 minutes, we should be coming into our own in the last 20, 25 minutes. And clearly Celtic aren't doing that. So, Hector, do you see any signs of burnout in, like, say, a Matt O'Reilly? Like Callum McGregor, we were talking about Callum McGregor, that big number 9 was right in front of me, and he just stood in Callum McGregor that whole game and sat.
And you've answered the question, because, and I've heard some people online having a go at McGregor, and I just think, what universe are they in? Because Matt O'Reilly's not kicked the ball since the link with Atletico Madrid. We can all see it.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a fabulous season up until the last few games. So him being invisible has a major impact on our midfield. So McGregor's man marked. So opposition teams know if they just focus on him, it diffuses what we do in our rhythm, our tempo. We can all see it. But McGregor's one of the few players who doesn't hide, always looks for the ball, but he needs support. And right now we don't have that support. And that, for me, is the crux of it. We don't have that support middle of the pitch to receive the ball, turn, and open up teams.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
Should he, as captain, be demanding that the rest of them then step up? Like Matt O'Reilly does come back 20 yards and...
But you don't think it? I'd be surprised if he's no. I mean, O'Reilly's a clever player. He's a good player. He's a very good player. He's a clever player. He's quite an articulate, intelligent man as well. I think he's just took, unfortunately for us, a big dip. I don't know what's in his head, because Atletico Madrid want you at quadruple the wages to play in one of the top 2 or 3 leagues in Europe. That must be a massive incentive for you. Is that just a coincidence that he's took a dip, just as we've said no to that? Because he's not kicked the ball. And for going from one of our best players suddenly not kicking the ball for 4 games, how do you manage that? Do you replace him? Who do you replace him with?
Well, that's one of the questions about your option, isn't it? Where is your Iwata? Where is your Home? Where is your Bernardo's? Could we? I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Could we try and change the personnel that we're currently demanding a lot of every game? These sort of things. We don't really see any squad rotation. You know what I mean?
But we do, Desi. We do.
No,
who's the midfield 3?
So who came on Saturday then in the midfield?
So the midfield 3 had been Bernardo in the role up to about Christmas, New Year. Then he, after the break, come back.
But he kind of wanted to
wasn't his best. The boy home had been injured. Then he had a virus. He was out. He's just come back, so he's been unavailable for the best part of a couple of months now. Rio Hatate's out injured. Iwata just come back to the bench at the weekend after being out for 8 weeks. So who's the option?
Was he even injured? He just seemed to disappear.
Remember against the European game, against who was it, Feyenoord, in the first half, he get carried off after they turned his ankle after 25 minutes. That's him just come back at the weekend in the subs bench. But the point I'm trying to make is, O'Reilly, ideally you would put him on the bench. Like Aaron Moy would step in for O'Reilly last year. Remember? Remember O'Reilly was a sub most of a lot of last season, because Aaron Moy was such a steady, good footballer. We've not got him. If O'Reilly's not playing well, what's the option? Who goes in there? And that's where I'm struggling. Again, for me, there's many things. It's ultimately about quality of the player available. But absolutely, and I said that in the WhatsApp, the manager's also got to take responsibility. Things like the block, things like the press in the second half, that's basic.
Yeah.
That's a basic. So that sits with him. He's got to fix that. But there's a lack of quality, Desi. We can't just take out a player like Matt Riley. Who goes in?
Right. So Monty, Monty, as Hector alludes there, things like the press, right? What does Celtic do all week? What do they work on? Surely, how can a professional footballer worth millions of pounds no be comfortable on the ball? I don't mean like pressure, all right, but surely you should be able to take a ball in space and find a man, Monty. You've played at Celtic Park, for God's sake. Scored, I believe. You don't mention it very often, but I like to remind the public you have scored at Celtic Park. You found space at Celtic Park. Why can't our players bring the ball out comfortably? Oh, this has been nonsense, Ange. I've still to see a Celtic team that's comfortable bringing the ball out for the back.
I genuinely think it's ability. I really do. And what we're asking them to do isn't something that you go back to coaching. You know, remember Ange had to deprogram them from what they've been coached all their lives. You know, the positional sense of a left back, the primary job of a centre half, the pivot, the number 8, the fucking defensive midfielder. All of those things that are coached become second nature inherent after you've done your 10,000 hours. So for professional footballer, they operate on autopilot. So we're trying to deconstruct. When you change manager, you change culture. Ralph alluded to that. But you're also changing some fundamentals around someone's wiring. So as a centre half, my first job would be to clear it and hoof. As a defensive midfielder, my job is to break up an attack and give the ball to someone else. Now I'm being asked to pivot. I'm being asked to make a sideways lateral run that makes no sense for what I've learned the previous 20 odd years, so that a centre half who's never fucking passed the ball further than 5 yards to someone has now got to ping through a fucking eye of a needle and do
Caldwell, we call that.
Caldwell, and do that at rapid fucking nanosecond speed. I just think it's ability, Desi. And we're asking. I go back to my very limited playing days when I was much younger, and we had a coach come in. I was trying to remember his name as you were talking. A guy called David Long, and he came into the university team, B division players, so reasonable, I guess, in amateur standards. And the man used to get so fucking frustrated over the most basic of drills because we just couldn't execute them. And when I say basic of drills, they were reasonably complex. A midfielder would pass, a centre forward would drop deep, take one touch, spin it out to the line where a winger would be timing to come onto the ball, to take a first time fucking cross for the other centre forward to be cutting across. Not overly complex, but we couldn't do it. We just couldn't. So gear that up for someone who's operated Premier League level, who had a decent run with Leicester City as well in Europe, who dominated when he was here before with his own players. And now the level of player is just significantly below what he's trying to coach. I don't think it's anything more than that. They just fucking can't do it.
Right. So I'm going to come back to you, Monty, but first of all, come to Ralph. Ralph, Hector had mentioned earlier on that there's a lot of kind of anger. It was bubbling under with the transfer window. New Celtic, Ralph, are delaying announcing bumper money in the bank, so to speak. But my question is here, if I can find it, the problem, Ralph, is the fans are powerless. What's the solution?
Well, that's the problem. We are powerless. There's nothing we can do because first of all, we've got too much of an emotional tie with it. We'll still turn up. We'll still buy the merchandise. We'll still see it through. And then for those that are moaning about it, we'll say, oh, you were never around in the 90s. For those that are supporting the board, we'll call them happy clappers. As long as we're arguing amongst each other, they'll get away with everything they want. It's the old divide and conquer thing to an extent. There is no immediate solution from our point of view. because that unrest, that hanging outside and sacking the board and all that, until it comes to a real head, because they're doing their job. That's the crux of the matter. They're doing what they're paid to do.
They're not doing the
And
job to supporters, though, right?
But it's not their job to encourage
No,
the
but
supporters. That's the
it's
managers and the
supporters,
team.
No, but we're talking about the supporters being angry here, right? That's where I think Desi's coming from. It's about the anger that's been simmering since the August transfer window closed and we didn't get the first team players we were sort of expecting, and it increased and the Green Brigade get kicked out. And all we're just saying is, Ralph, that you can see at the games, go back to the Hearts game in the middle of December, the target was Law get to fucking sack the board straight away, and that was without the Green Brigade who were banned. That for me was quite eye-opening at that point because they weren't there at the time, and it's just been building and building. And January's transfer window, yet again, the bare minimum's done again, and the performances are getting worse on the pitch. This anger is just seriously, it's coming to a real head pretty soon, and fans don't care what they do care what the balance sheet is because it's not getting spent. The board's KPIs get met means nothing to the fans if the product on the pitch isn't being looked after. And I think you're going to see major protests at the front door pretty soon.
Yeah.
Which is why it's kind of surprising that with so much money in the bank, they're not saying, right, we've accumulated so much, we are going to invest in the team. We are going to back them up. They're not coming out and saying that, and that's kind of worrying. Whereas
nothing,
coming
Ross.
out and saying, yeah, that's what I mean. They've come out and said about Barrowfield, which we've already got Lennox down. Why do we need another trainer?
For the girls and the youth. And the Lennox Town used to be for the B team and Celtic's main team, the A team and the B team, and then Barrowfield's to be for the women and the youths. But chances are Barrowfield will end up getting used by the main team. I can see that if they've got a full inside pitch, indoor pitch, depending on the
Can I ask a question to Monty? So Monty, here's the thing about why there's another thing with lots of anger is there's a lack of communication to zero communication from the Celtic executive about what their strategy is, what their vision is, right? You would think every now and again Nicholson would come out, even via, Celtic TV, whatever it may be, 10 minutes once a month to say this is our 3-year vision, 5-year vision, an update on it. There is nothing. What other business do you find that there's zero engagement with the people that pay the bills, the shareholders? There's nothing. What's your thoughts on that?
I think, and just as you mentioned it, I went just for a quick Google to see what's there. We have, do you know what the vision and the mission statement of Celtic Football Club are? I don't. I'm just curious if anyone knows them. They should exist. Desi, Google that.
Okay, you carry on.
So you're looking for the mission statement of Celtic PLC. I think, and it was a mate of mine, one of Lahini's, one of the Glasgow lads, me and him were in a WhatsApp chat, Brian, back and forth, and he mentioned it. He said at some stage we've forgotten that we're a football club. A football club will be organised for the benefit of the poor. The Walford paraphrase, put that quote when the club was founded. And that's a noble idea and a charitable idea, but there's no PLC's charitable. So I think they're not saying anything because they don't have anything to say. They don't have anything to say that's going to resonate with any of us. They don't have anything to say that we go. Now, I agree, and I know we've debated this. If they said 50 million of that 100, we're going to extend the south tier. We're going to move Desi out of his comfortable seat and give him a more comfortable.
Oh.
We're going to make the stadium an 80,000 seater stadium, and we're going to do that in the next 5 years. It's going to cost 120 million. We're going to stump up 50, and then over the course of the next 5 years, we're going to try and develop. If they told you that, then you would accept them hoarding 10 to 15 million a year because there's something fucking tangible there. If they said we're going to further develop Barrowfield and we're going to buy a fucking, a English tier 4 team and do the old switcheroo that they were trying to do in the 2000s, again, you'd accept it. But they're not saying anything, I think, partly because of embarrassment. they've executed a conservative strategy too well. They now have too much money in the bank, and that's almost negligent. For a PLC not to be reinvesting its cash reserves back in, either through share buybacks, paying off debt, whatever you would do in running a normal PLC to further increase the value of the book value of the company, they're not fucking doing any of it. That's negligence. But that's not negligence in a deliberate, chosen fashion. That's because they don't know what to fucking do. In my honest opinion, I would love a big reveal, and I'd love to be wrong. I'd love us to get to the end of the season and Rodgers has managed to get us limped over the line. And then they say, fucking ta-da, 100 million in the bank, and there's a big new European league that we weren't allowed to tell you about, and we're going to be at the top table. Fucking amazing. But they can't tell you that. But I fundamentally believe, Hector, they're not saying anything because they've nothing to say. They are operating completely at the limit of their capabilities, and there's fuck all else they can do.
Right, before I come back to you, Monty, for the ending. Sorry, hold on. Just to read you, Celtic don't have an official mission statement. They have a social mission statement, which is a lovely way of ticking a box, isn't it? Who is Celtic Football Club for, right? Celtic Football Club is for people who want to support a football club that strives for excellence in Scotland and in Europe. Please do not laugh at the back. Is proud of its history, supportive of its local community, and seeks to support the following aims: to maximise all opportunities to disassociate the club from sectarianism and bigotry of any kind, to promote Celtic as a club for all people, regardless of gender, age, religion, race, or ability. Ability is a good one at the end. Right, so what I'm going to come to, just to wrap up the final point, really. Monty, we have been having various discussions, and the rumour continues to circulate that there's various meetings possibly been lined up for a certain golfer from the Barbados area. Mm-hmm. Could Celtic possibly be being lined up for a sale, Monty? You're our resident spreadsheet man. What's your thoughts? I'm not asking you to commit, but what would you think would be the figures and the logic behind that? Put it that way.
In the absence of Schrodinger's driveway, if we can call it that, or Lowell's paradox.
Monoblock. Schrodinger's monoblock.
I think everything points to them fattening up the balance sheet for a sale. And if the rumours are true and these conversations are happening and we get I was laughing with one of my mates, if it's coming from the Middle East, you'd love it to be the fucking Bank of Palestine, but it's more likely to be Lumi Bank from Israel. Knowing those fuckers for an extra tenner. If we're in a scenario for sale, then hoarding cash makes sense because it adds to the multiples. And as we were doing this very, very briefly, I bore people. I know I bored you guys with it, but I actually plumbed the numbers in. There's a guy who created a model called the multivariate model for value in football clubs. It's really boring. It's a guy who wrote a fucking PhD on it. And he's advised, a guy called Tom Markham, if anyone wants to Google him, Markham, and he's advised funds on how to buy a club and what club valuation should be. But basically, he came up with a model because football clubs don't follow any traditional model. Really, really briefly, club value is its revenue plus its net assets multiplied by its net profit plus revenue divided by revenue multiplied by the percentage of stadium filled divided by percentage of wage ratio. In Celtic terms, what the fuck does that mean? Our revenues last year were 119 million. Our net assets were 108 million. Our net profit was 33 million. Percentage stadium filled is subjective, but what do we have? 50-something thousand season books, so 95% percentage fill. And our wages to turnover ratio last year was 51%. Our wages were 60 million, just under 61 million. If you plumb that into good old Tom Markham's valuation formula, it values Celtic at over 542 million. Now, that's too high. We all know that to be too high when you could buy Bournemouth for 140 and they're an EPL club. But that's his formula. And when you throw any of the other mechanisms at it as to how you value a club, the two big variables that are increasing Celtic's valuation right now are its net assets and its net profit. So we are at the peak right now of our valuation. Like, we can't get any fucking better unless they qualified for the Champions League again. So everything, the hoarding of cash, the putting the main assets on 5-year contracts, the hiring of a tier 1 manager, the convincing the guy to come out of a 1-year sabbatical to come back to Celtic, the switcheroo of fucking Lowell coming back as chairman, it all points to there being something else than just simply running a PLC or a football operation. So if you're asking me, are we up for sale? I think we are. That valuation is too high, but it is an accepted one. And I'd say Celtic could be sold sometime in the next sort of 6 months for about 300 or 400 million. That's my call.
So there we go.
If that's the case, that would explain why the current board are not laying out their plans for even the next 3 years, the next 5 years, because they don't expect to be there. It's obviously just a case of keeping it going along as it is. We don't need to do this, we don't need to do that, because it'll be nothing to do with us. We're just going to leave it all nice and tidy for the next guy, and that's more worrying to me.
Sorry for getting in. Remember also, the business model is not dictated by qualification for the Champions League. The business model is driven by, if we don't get to the Champions League, we've got reserves, and the Europa League is the minimum we're going to get, and we work our way through that. So there is a step up there for the next guy if the next guy's got a set of balls like Adam Crozier and really wants to take Celtic to the next level. But that needs investment. The problem is, though, with Celtic's valuation so high, where are you going to make? You're not going to squeeze any more out of domestic. You're not going to squeeze any more out of European, arguably, without investment.
So there we are.
The thing, it does actually tie in with something that Postecoglou said in a press conference when he was at Tottenham. He's still at Tottenham, and it was he said something to it was after the Leeds game, I think it was. They played Leeds or something like that, and he said they have a plan at Celtic, and boy, do they stick to it. And I sort of took that to refer to the transfer policy, the buy low, sell high thing. But maybe that's not the plan he was talking about. Maybe it is the plan to fatten it up and sell it. Because the more I look at it, we're not visionaries on our board. And we're just accepting that they're conservative in a sense. But they must surely have a plan. There must be some sort of game plan, either to build the club or to sell the club or whatever. It doesn't look like they're trying to build it. It doesn't look like they're trying to get into another league or anything. It looks like they're just leaving it nice for somebody else to take up the reins.
Yeah. So I'll leave it there for everyone listening to judge. There's a possibility, we're just saying it's a rumour going around, and Monty's giving us some figures. The Celtic board possibly is fattening the club up to be sold, or as I've suggested before, it could just be basic incompetence. It's hard to comprehend, but it could just be fucking useless. It's important. And again, I'll just read the final summary of the mission statement. Hector, you'll like this. The club always has been and always will simply aim to be the team of the people. So always remember that. So Hector,
we are the people.
Exactly, Hector. I'm going to finish with you. Again, you stated on your WhatsApp, I'm not giving anything up. There's plenty of points to play for that the old cliche, etc. Motherwell next game away. Are you confident we can? Again, I'll be just happy for a 1-0 and let's just try and beat the Huns twice.
I don't think anybody's confident the way we're playing right now. So you couldn't get into that game expecting to win. But just get back to it. If we're 10 points in it, we're no daft. We're all daft. We're being round the blocks. 2 points in it. Just got to keep going. Just got to try to keep grinding out results. And if we don't grind out results, you know what's going to happen. This weekend is invariably a tough game at Fir Park. If results don't go our way this weekend and we lose and they win, it's the fat lady's fucking really gearing up, isn't she?
He's gargling.
He's gearing up. But at the same time, listen, I would take a 1-0 ground out win this weekend quite happily.
A Bernabei goal.
Off his arse would do me, and hopefully Carter Vickers is back and Alistair Johnson's back the next 2 weeks, and Rio magically appears for a few games in about 3 weeks' time. So listen, I don't think we want to get up just yet. Let's just keep going.
That's it. So we can only hope for the best. So yeah. So again, folks, a wee bit drier tonight compared to El Conto lad in the last podcast. But we are where we are. We are literally looking at 12 games with our fingers, toes, and eyes and legs crossed, hoping for the best, rather than being kind of any basis of realistic optimism. Fingers crossed. We get past Motherwell, as you say, Hector. I think Carter Vickers might be another week, but fingers crossed. Again, you don't want to rush him back in the last 2 weeks, and then he's not available for the Huns game or whatever. We want to make sure he's available for the Huns game or the Huns games. My only worry, Monty, is that we don't perform well enough to actually make it for them coming to Celtic Park after the break. That's one of my kind of underlying concerns, that we fail to actually keep it going until the end, because I would imagine they would schedule Monty the actual break to make sure they've got enough wee games against everyone else to win.
No, I'm with Hector as much as I'm down in the gub about where we are. It's whoever's least pish over the next 12 games is going to win it. They are due some sort of blip, but they're going to get all the help they need. We're in a really terrible Vienna form, so you can imagine it can only get better. And stranger things have happened, but we're just terrible on the eye. But fuck it, it could be worse. It could be worse.
You've just given us the D-Ream title for the podcast. Things can only get better.
Desi, one thing, right? Just I was laughing when he was talking, but mentioned about things that could maybe make a difference. Here's something, right? Brendan Rodgers himself being Brendan Rodgers.
Yes.
Right? Stop your pussyfooting shite. Get your balls out on the table and just fucking talk shite. Real fucking Brendan shite. You're too passive. Get the balls out. Full of shite. Lay it on thick next fucking 6 to 8 weeks. See how it goes, right? That's what I think might make a wee difference. Him being him. He's not being him. He's been some cunt fucking else. So he's been.
So there you are. There you are, Brendan, from Hector. Brendan shows your balls, cries Hector Bandido of He Times podcast. There's a statement that you don't see in the news now very often. So Ralph, we'll finish with you. Optimism for the weekend and beyond. Come on.
I think it's one of the times where you think that you need to get the key players, the core players, the experienced players, get them round and get one of the old-fashioned G-up speeches. Go back to doing what you're doing the best. Let's go out there. Let's try to win games. Let's get rid of this fear of losing. Let's get a shape, a formation. Just do what you're good at. Do what you're paid to do. And if we do that, then there's a realistic chance we can make top 6 this season.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Neil Warnock. That was a lovely piece of advice for the Aberdeen girls out there. All right, very good. Right, so that's this left for me, folks. Thanks very much, as always, for listening. Please give us a like, subscribe, comments. Please let us know how you're enjoying or taking in the podcast. And it's this left for me, Desmond, to thank Hector Bandido. Thank you, Hector.
Cheers, guys.
Ralph Mal, thank you for joining again, Ralph. Hope you're feeling better soon.
I hope so as well, and thanks for cheering me up.
Try your best. And the man with all the figures. Let's see if the portent of doom comes true. Have you still got your shares, by the way, Monty?
No, I liquidated those long before Rangers were liquidated. So.
Unlucky. That's a shame. So thanks very much, Monty.
Thank you, Desi. Thanks, lads. Enjoyed that.
Okay. All right, folks. Thanks very much for listening. My name is Desmond. Good night.